Hey everyone, welcome to this week's interview that I've been talking to you guys about all week. And yesterday we even did a teaser. And I'm really excited to get straight into this interview. In this interview, again, I'm going to be interviewing Michael Janda, who is the author of this great book called Burn Your Portfolio. And he is he was the senior creative director at Fox Studios, and he's won many awards, Inc. magazine and Webby awards and things like that. So I'm just going to bring him straight in right now, and we're going to discuss the role of visual design in marketing, and I'm going to pick his brain as much as he lets me. So here is Michael. Hey, Michael, you're on.
Hey, how are you? I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for you to pick my brain. I'm an open book. No question is off the table.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to let everyone know that at the end of this interview, we're going to have a Q&A session. So if you have questions, just kind of like wait until the end. We're definitely going to have time for you guys to ask Michael some questions. And thanks to everyone who's tuning in, by the way, Javed, Mustafa, Rebecca, who is my wife, of course, Mayor Jay. So thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys have some good questions for Michael at the end of this video. And again, it's not very often that we get to interview someone who has worked with the biggest businesses in the entire world. I mean, some of these businesses are bigger than, countries themselves, like, for example, Google and Netflix and Disney. And I know you have worked with all of these great, amazing companies.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go right into it. I have a lot of thoughts about the role of copywriting as it relates to how effective it can be for an awesome marketing campaign and how great it can be for conversion rates and things like that. But in this interview, I want to hear from someone who is on the other side of this, the person who is the highly skilled and experienced visual designer. So Michael, tell us what you think visual design does for marketing.
Well, it's a great question. And I know this is going to start us down a rabbit hole of a whole bunch of different things that we can talk about. For me, there are really three legs of this stool. And when you say the writing, the copywriting, I translate that to the word messaging. It's what is the message you're conveying to the end customer? So that's one of those legs, and it's so important. Then you have the branding leg, which is the visual design leg, which is where my passion is. And that's so important. And then you have the other leg of positioning, which really goes to the audience. You're positioning a certain product or a certain service to cater to a specific audience. And it's all about persona development and having empathy for the end customer. So for me, those are the three legs of the stool that have to be working right in your marketing. And I know that you focus on the messaging side or the writing, and it's critical. My agency, we focused on the branding side or the visual design side, which is also critical. And then the positioning, neither of those two things can be done if you don't have the positioning right. You've got to understand who you're designing for or who you're talking to in your marketing messaging. So from my perspective, those three things they're just not one is more important than the other. Although most designers are going to say to you, oh, it's got to look good. The design's got to look good. But a more senior perspective from a designer is going to realize that, it's got to look good, it's got to sound right, and it's got to target that certain customer.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is that first, what you call positioning is what we would call understanding the audience.
Sure.
So once you understand the audience, then you can create a message, which is the copywriting, and you also need the branding that elevates that message. I think this is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So
I think that's a good summation. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's my job, you know.
Yeah, it's good.
But
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started in visual design and marketing, and the impact that you have seen working with some of the companies you work with. Uh, just your background and your experience in this
Yeah. Okay.
field.
Yeah. So my career started back in 1996. I graduated from Indiana University. And back then, they didn't even have a graphic design degree. My degree was studio art, and it was an emphasis in graphic design because just the way you could emphasize your degree in painting or drawing. And I had as much painting and drawing and ceramics as I did anything else in college. But I didn't want to be a starving artist, so I went the route of the only route you can really go and get an actual job being an artist person. I went down that path, and my first few jobs were with a couple of marketing companies and things. I started at the bottom of the barrel. I started working for Fox in 2000. And that's when my career really elevated to the next level. I mean, I was a creative director there, had a team. I oversaw the developers and the copywriters, the editorial, the account managers, and the design team, of course. And that was what was under my stewardship at Fox. We were over the Fox Kids and Fox Family brands, and did a lot of really high profile work. I mean, millions and millions of viewers seeing your stuff.
What are some of the really cool or projects that you've worked on that we may recognize? And
well, some of those
exactly
ones.
What was your contribution
Yeah,
on this project?
It was all Power Rangers and Digimon.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and Mary Kate and Ashley back in the day, and all those shows that ended up kind of migrating over to Disney, because Disney ended up buying our divisions, and now they own Fox all outright. And so anyway, so we were working with a lot of those brands. Man, I saw every Power Rangers episode ever. I
have even more respect for you now, because my entire 90s can be defined by the Power Rangers.
Yes, good. It's good.
So I mean, I would come home from school and I would watch Power Rangers, and then I would go outside and pretend to be a Power Ranger. So I would go to sleep, holding a Power Ranger toy, and then in the morning talking to my friends about Power Rangers at school. So that was my life. So I thank you for
Hey,
for doing that
good. So you probably at some point in there went to websites that I designed, built, or managed with my team. So
yeah. Okay. So what are
Well, let me go on just one little morsel after that. So in 2002, I started my own agency, and that's when I really started working with a wider breadth of clients. So I started my agency while I was still living in LA, and I had relationships with people who were working at Sony and Warner Brothers and ABC Television. And these were my initial friends, and I built my business off of some of those relationships. One client became two became four, and four became eight, and it just started to grow, which landed us into YouTube, and landed us from YouTube, which is owned by Google, landed us into Google. It just kind of virally spread over the course of 13 years before I sold my agency in 2015. So that's the kind of quick summary of my agency life background. Yeah.
And I understand that you sold your agency because you wanted to write more and do more videos and do more public speaking on this topic.
It is. That's the reason I left my agency last year, but I sold my agency because I got to a point where it wasn't exciting for me anymore. And I found this out when we landed Google as a client back in, I think we started working for them in 2012. And Google all of a sudden becomes a client, and they became our biggest client for the last 3 years of my agency. But it wasn't anything exciting. It was just like, okay, good. We just landed another client. But when I landed, in the early days, when I landed Disney as a client, I was like, oh, this is the greatest. Yeah. But so that was like a sign to me that, okay, we've kind of conquered a lot of mountains here. what's next for this agency. And I ended up reaching out to one of my competitors here, who we had kind of bounced around merging a few times over the years. And I reached out to him and said, hey, I'm thinking of selling my agency. And they were very interested in expanding their agency to be more national facing.
Yeah.
So I stayed with them for a couple of years, and then I left there last year to do what you just said, to kind of chase down writing books and things. Yeah.
All right. So now let's just get into the meat of this interview.
Good.
Right. Tell me about the impact that visual design has on marketing from the companies you work with. Give us case studies, give us examples, give us strategies, give us results. I'm ready to hear it all from you.
Good. Okay, so let's start by talking about visual design and expand that to be talking about branding in general. What is your visual brand, and what is the perception of your brand beyond just the design, but what is people's tangible perception of your brand? What do they think of you? And it does incorporate visual. It incorporates your messaging as well. So, and if we look at that, one of the examples that I love is Airbnb. And Airbnb, this wasn't a client of ours, so I can speak freely and of them, but there's a company called VRBO.com, vacationrentalsbyowner.com. And my family, we've rented from VRBO for a lot of years. And it's peer-to-peer renting like Airbnb. Now, Airbnb is now a noun. People say when they're traveling, they're like, oh yeah, I'm just staying at my Airbnb over here. It's like Kleenex, you know, I love the Kleenex. People say, hey, do you have a Kleenex? Well, it's a tissue. Yeah, or I need to get a Xerox. You know, you can go down the list of some of these people who have
Google that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could go down the list of some of the ones that have done that. Coke is one. You know, I need a Coke. Well, that could mean any kind of soda in a lot of countries. They just need, they want a soda. So Airbnb did this, and to the point where they own the word, and the word has become synonymous with peer-to-peer sharing. Now, it's huge because VRBO was ahead of them in the market. They got to market before them. We rented all the time from VRBO, but now people are calling it an Airbnb. So this is really the big objective of any brand. And it incorporates visual design, and it incorporates the messaging side, but you want to try and own a word. You want to make your brand synonymous with a certain thing in your marketplace. And it doesn't have to be global. And that can be daunting for some people who a dentist in Dallas, Texas isn't going to be able to become most likely synonymous with the word dentist, but they can in their market. They can you start somewhere and you expand from there. And this is where good marketing comes into play. And a lot of it has to do with visual design. You have to be visually recognizable. Now, most people, even if you've never rented from Airbnb, when I say Airbnb, you think of a color. And the color is very similar to what's on your screen right here, the role of visual design and marketing. That bar is almost the Airbnb color. It's a little bit lighter than that, but that's the color. And so you try to start with visual design. So taking this concept of branding and merging it into visual design, we're trying to own a position in the market. You're trying to do that by owning a color, or owning a catchphrase, or owning a word, and that's great branding. And it requires effort, and it requires a strategic execution plan to be able to own those kinds of things. You have to decide. You have to do research. You want to own this color, this kind of salmon Airbnb color. you got to research, who does somebody own it already in your marketplace, and do you have to change yours just a little bit to make yours unique enough that people will make it synonymous with your brand. So I think, you know, visual design has everything to do with those things, but it's all to the end objective of owning a certain position in a certain marketplace.
Okay, so I guess one of the things you're saying is, when you are setting up your company, do some research, look at your competitors, and one way to cement yourself, to brand yourself in your space and be known, is to pick a color or a tagline or a message that is not being used, that can be catchy enough, that can be visually appealing enough to cement you as the, you know, leader in that space. I think that part of audience research and researching the competition is usually what people don't do. They don't go to that level of seeing, okay, my competitors, what colors are they using? I want to make sure that we stand out from them. Is that the goal?
100%. And you're exactly right about a lot of people just skipping that step. Designers love to design. So they're gonna start pushing pixels around as soon as you greenlight them to do it. And if you're hiring a designer, don't let them do that until they've shown you their research, until they force them and ask them for it in that initial engagement when you're creating a brand identity project with a designer. Ask them, I want to see your competitive research on the brands that are in our marketplace. Here's 5 of them that we compete with. So I want you to do a competitive analysis of those brands. And I want you to come back to us and tell us where we should visually position ourselves in comparison to those brands. And a lot of people, clients don't know to ask that. So hopefully this is valuable for some of the people on this call. But designers just skip it. A lot of more junior level designers are just going to skip that because they don't know the importance of that piece. And I'm as guilty as anybody. I mean, you go back 15 years, 20 years, and I'm just getting, you greenlight the project and you open up Photoshop. That's the next step. And you don't go and dig into this competitive research piece, which is so important and not very time consuming. Honestly, you've got to just open it up and take a look. Write down, this is what I would write down just to give something tactile to the audience. I would get the color swatch of each of those companies. I would get the logo and put this all in a multi-page document. The color swatch, the logo, the tagline, like what is their one-liner, we make lawns green or whatever it might be. It could be a million different things. Anyway, the tagline, and then what is their kind of positioning statement? What is the one paragraph or the 4-sentence description of what their company is? That's all you really need. You could pull a lot more. I mean, you can go really deep into a competitive analysis. But that's kind of really at the heart of what any designer is going to need to do, or marketer for that matter, to go and kind of start getting a sense of where these companies position themselves so that you can start crafting a brand that is positioned in harmony with them where you need to be and unique where you need to be.
Okay. So I think that's a very important question that everybody should ask a design agency, or even if they're hiring a design on Fiverr, which has become so popular nowadays, get logos for as cheap as $50. That, hey, I first want to see your competitive research before you start making anything. I want to see here are our top 5 competitors. Here's just show us what their color swatches are, what their tagline is, what their brand identity is, and tell me how you're going to differentiate us before you start doing stuff.
Yeah, it's very valuable. Okay. And anybody could do it as part of their RFP for a designer. You could do that research yourself. I mean, it's not rocket science research. So anybody listening to this could go and pull that information just to do their own little analysis and then give it to the designer. If you don't want to pay somebody to do it yourself and give it to the designer and say, here's our competitors and where they're positioned.
Yeah. Okay. So now I want to ask you, when you are designing something for one of your clients, or even if it's your book or your website, how do you start? How do you go about it? What's your approach?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the approach that I take, we talked a little bit about competitive research just now, but there's also the customer research. And you always have to be asking yourself, who is this for? And what do I want them to do? And I know this is at the heart of a lot of your messaging, and it's at the heart of user experience design, which is very popular right now. What do I want them to do? And you have to have this empathy for the user, and you develop personas, just like you do in marketing. You define 3 to 5 potential customers of your product, and you define their demographics. You say, okay, this person is X age, this is their income level, this is their hobbies, these are their brands that they have an affinity for. They like these certain brands. This is what an average day looks like to somebody like that. And you create these personas, and then you prioritize your personas. So you have these 3 to 5 potential customers of your end product, and you create another little sheet for each one, down to the point of putting a picture on there. Just find some picture off of Google and throw it onto there, that this is what that person looks like. And then that person becomes part of the team. While you're designing, this is the person who you need to have front and center. I usually tell people to have a persona handy, have it on your desk, print it out and stick it on your desk, so that you're always remembering that this is who we're creating this for. This is who we're targeting, trying to reach with this certain product that we're creating. And it changes the way you think while you're designing. You always have to be asking yourself, is Sally in this picture, is she going to like this or not? And you've got to be asking yourself that question. So that's kind of step number one when we're going to a design process, is competitive analysis, and then this persona development. And then the third piece, which is also super, super critical, and it is the thing that makes a design project go smoothly. It makes it so that the client does not hate the designer right out of the gate. It is the process of mood boarding. It is creating a collage of design styles that you pull from Pinterest or Behance or Dribbble or any website anywhere, and you put them in a collage on a page, and they're all a harmonious style, and you do 5 or 6 of these, and then you sit with the client and you say, here's a potential design style. This one is kind of a hand-drawn look, and it has blue as the core color palette, and here's what the little doodles look like, and your brand could look like this collage of, could visually feel like this collage. And then here's another one. This one has more of a line art style, and it's driven by, it's kind of an aqua color and blah, blah, blah. And then the next one could be, here's one that's very photography based. This one, we use a lot of photos instead of illustrations, and your brand could have this feel. Which of these mood boards resonates with you the most? And that process of taking a client through visual mood boards gets everybody on the same page early on in the project, where the client can look at this and say, oh, I hate those 3 ideas. And the designer can say, that's fine with me because I didn't create them. This is where designers are so sensitive. Designers are all sensitive. If you critique their stuff, they can walk off into the next room and cry because they're so sensitive. And so if you're critiquing stuff that somebody else did and isn't even in the room, then nobody's going to have hurt feelings. It puts the designer and the client on the same playing field right out of the gate. So that mood boarding process is also so critical. So I do all of this before I even start designing anything custom for a client. It's competitive research, persona development, and then mood boarding.
Okay.
And that gets everybody on the same page.
So most of the people that are watching right now, actually probably all of them, are not designers, they are business owners, right? So they are trying, they're entrepreneurs launching their business, launching their next product.
Awesome.
Maybe, they're, they do this serially. So for those people, the people who are watching right now, how can they go about implementing what we just said, these three things: competitive research, creating personas, and mood boards, to create assets or have assets developed that are going to actually have an impact on their conversion rate? Because that's, for the people watching, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Is how do I sell more of my products and services or get more buy-in for my ideas?
Yeah. So I think don't start the design piece without doing those things. You can do competitive analysis yourself. So research the competitive landscape, create a one-pager for each of the top five competitors.
Mm-hmm.
You can do persona development yourself. Go and find a picture of who you think that this is the target customer. Who are you trying to reach? What are their demographics? And create 5 of those yourself. And then that can be something that you deliver to a designer so that you know that they're going down the path you want them to go down. I don't know that I've ever had a client ever give me that. And it's not very complicated. I've done thousands and thousands of projects, but I don't know that I've ever had a client give me that. And man, I would have loved it, because it takes away all the pain at the start of wondering, are we on the right page here? Is the designer going to go down the right path on this? So if you as a business owner do that, you're automatically going to get a better result from your designer, because you did a little bit of legwork at the start. It can make all the difference. It's going to save you stress, number one, because every business owner hates when the designer comes back and the designs don't match what they were hoping for. They don't match what they were thinking they were going to get, or it doesn't match the target audience that they want to reach. So giving them that, you're going to be able to hold the designer accountable to the same target audience that you're trying to reach. So that's one way that can be implemented. Then mood boarding, I would just ask the designer to do that process. Say, hey, create some mood boards for us. Most designers worldwide understand that term, mood boarding. Create 5 mood boards for us. We want to see that. I know it's not in your proposal, so if you have to charge us an extra $200 for that, then do it. But we need to see something before we get into custom design, because it's going to help us not have combative struggles later on. Okay.
So let's talk about what makes a good design. In your opinion, what makes a good design, and also which brands are using design effectively? Let's talk about both of those things.
Okay, so the first one, what makes a good design? And just like any marketing, design is under this big umbrella of marketing. Marketing, inside of it, you have positioning, messaging, research, motion, you have visual design. It's all under this big umbrella. And the purpose of marketing is to communicate a message, or Seth Godin says it's to elicit change in somebody. So if that's the purpose, then visual design plays that same role. It's there to communicate a message or to inspire someone to change something, a behavior, to act on a behavior. It could be a variety of different things. So you want an action. Now, visual design plays a role in that. But I think we mentioned this for a minute yesterday. It doesn't mean that every design has to look like some kind of beautiful thing. Take a look at infomercial design, for example. People spend millions of dollars creating infomercials, and you watch them at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever. People are pumping their channels full of infomercials, and they look like crap. But they intentionally look like crap because that's what's going to cater to the audience. That's the audience expectation. They have a certain thing. You see a lot of this in social media now.
Wait, can you talk about that a little bit more? They are purposely making it look bad because it suits their audience. Like, unpack that.
So it makes it look affordable.
Okay.
So if you design too high end and you're trying to get somebody into a 3 easy payments of $19.99, well, if you look super fancy, then the message and the price do not correlate. They're not harmonious. And so you've got to make sure that the brand matches the intended action. And you want somebody who's watching an infomercial with 3 easy payments of $19.99, they want to look at it and say, oh yeah, that's cheap. That seems affordable. What $19.99, that exact same price for another type of product could seem too expensive. You know, price is not, price is a variable that is, it's
relative.
Yeah, it's relative. It's a relative variable. Depends. You know, $22.99 to one person is expensive and $22.99 to another person is cheap. So it's completely relative.
So it's to push, it's to attract the ideal client and to push away the non-ideal client, right? And I think we have this in copywriting too. So if you're communicating something that's affordable, you want to do advertising, you want to explain what the offer is, you want to explain how it's going to make their life better and how they can get it. But with luxury products, what you want to do is you want to brand or lead with aspirational identity and not so much leading with, you know, what are the survival benefits. You want to lead with, how is this going to make you look? How is this going to make you feel? How is it going to make you feel, you know, when you have it on or you use it, and how is it going to make you perceived in the eyes of others? So for example, I think this is very relevant, the way that Ford or Honda or Toyota designs an ad is very different from an ad for a Corvette. When you watch an ad for Honda, the messaging is, you know, how many miles per gallon, how much per month, you know, how many seats inside, etc. Now, if Corvette tried to do that, if Chevy tried to do that with their Corvette, they would be shooting themselves in the head, in the heart, and in the foot. Because when they advertise the miles per gallon, that's not attractive. When they advertise the number of seats, that's not attractive. And when they advertise the, you know, how much it is per month, that's not attractive. So they have to go with aspirational identity. So what's their headline? It's you know, Corvette, because nobody sings about a Volvo, right? And you remember Prince's song about the Corvette
Little
and
red
things
Corvette.
like that. So obviously. So that's how kind of what I'm hearing you say with design is that, you know, if you're selling a cheap product, don't copy Apple, you know, don't copy you know, Hermes, you know. And if you have, obviously this one's more obvious, the other one's not so obvious. If you have an expensive product, don't copy, give me an example here, Michael, an infomercial that you watch at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Exactly.
Right. Perfect. That's a very important, I think, takeaway. So okay, so that's what makes a design good. Really, again, going back to understanding who your audience is, you want to attract the right ones and you want to thwart the wrong ones. And now, can you give us, can you break down the design of some of the, you know, our beloved brands? I think that's what's really interesting, because before we thought, you know, many people watching, maybe they thought that these brands got big and their branding is just what it is. It's just kind of how it started with, but they don't know that it was designed, not just, you know, literally like, you know, graphic design, but there was a design to it. They like what you shared yesterday to me was really eye-opening, that the reason Apple, their design is so minimal is because they want to attract everybody. It's not because they said, hey, minimal is a great look, right?
Yeah, they have to evolve. They have to evolve from one marketing piece to another, from one ad to another. So you'll see that some of their ads are very colorful. You think back to the M&M, first iPod ads with these white headphones flinging around, dancing around, and so iconic and so memorable. And it was all about that color. But you go to their website, and the page for the iPod back in that day was colorful and big and fun. But the page on the exact same site was for the MacBook Pro was very black and white, stark, could cater to a corporate audience, and didn't dissuade them from buying. So that's why a brand like Apple that has to target so many different customers, they strip their brand back to be so minimal so that it feels good to the 15-year-old girl as much as it does to the 55-year-old, retired insurance guy. It's got to cater to both of those audiences, so their brand can't be so dominant. Let's talk about another brand that doesn't have this same issue necessarily. Some of the restaurants and things like McDonald's is always a big brand that people think of. And even though Ronald McDonald has not been a thing for like 30 years, he's still a thing. Even kids probably know who Ronald McDonald is. And it used to be a statue outside of Ronald McDonald, but the branding was so heavy and so entrenched that McDonald's over the years has struggled to get away from being perceived as this kid brand. This is where you take your kids to get a hamburger. That was what McDonald's whole push was in the 80s. It was Ronald McDonald and Grimace, and they had cartoon kind of commercials that, the characters suited up and talking and things, and it was all target the kids, they'll make the parents go. That was their marketing strategy. And it worked, but it worked so well that they struggle even now when they try and compete with Starbucks for coffee. They struggle to break free from the perception that that's McDonald's marketing. They did such a great job of it. So it's a little bit of a tangent, but if we're talking about branding and how good brands have done it, some brands have done it so well that they can't even get away from it, like a McDonald's. Some of the other brands, the ones that have big influence, Nike is a huge influencer brand. They've implemented brand style that a lot of people have followed. You can even go back and say that Apple probably derived a lot of brand style from Nike. Similar situation. Nike's got to be able to cater to somebody buying kids' shoes as much as somebody buying golf products, as much as the basketball lovers. They're trying to target so many different types of people at different demographics. Google is one of the interesting ones that I have watched for a lot of years. Google, if you go back 20 years, Google was just the worst. Even 10 years, man, it was like the worst big brand of all time. Their logo was terrible. They used all the colors. Their logo was this multicolored thing. And I am so proud as a designer of Google's ability over the last about 7 years to turn their visual brand into something admirable, because it was terrible for so long. I mean, they just honestly made a search box, and then they used the Times New Roman as the font. I mean, there was no brand there, and then they became $1 billion company and still had a bad brand. But now they've turned this into an admired visual brand. The way that they have adapted that has been very impressive from a branding standpoint.
So we know that in the last 7 years, Google has been one of the best companies to invest in, right? So what do you think?
I did. So I'm still holding it now. So yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, now these announcements about tariffs, I'm sure hurt you. Well, I heard all of us.
I'm up big enough to write it down if I need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think the branding that Google, that what you just talked about, what Google did, do you feel like that had an impact on their just, mission of world domination that they have kind of displayed in the last 7 years?
Yeah, I think before, if you go back to when Google started its real big brand push, and even their apps and tools have all been redesigned. They use a thing, they call it material design, which is kind of their brand style that they've developed. And it's all the way that you see things, these very subtle gradients. They have a very, very, very big color palette that they work from. But you go back 7 years, and that's really, maybe 10 years, but that's really when Google started to push products beyond their digital products. Before that, it was, Gmail, Google Maps, and Google Search, and then Google Ads. And that was the big core. But over the last 10 years, and mostly the last 5 or 7, they've branched out into tangible products. They have Android phones, they have smart speakers, yeah, they have tangible products. They have the Chromebooks that Chromebooks was one of their first launches of a product line. And so they're entering into a market where they have to compete with Apple. They made all their money on ad search, Google Ads in search. And they've now branched out into all of these different things, cars and things. They've had to level up their visual brand, their visual design, so that they could go to market with all of these products and not be laughed out of the marketplace by the Apple lovers who will never convert to Google because it looks so bad. Well, Google doesn't look so bad anymore. And so Google has a chance to attract and steal some of the customers that were Apple aficionados.
No, and that definitely happened because, like, for example, speaking about the iPhone specifically, I mean, iPhone sales have plateaued for the last almost 2 years. So obviously what Google has been doing has been working. Let me ask you about, and then this is going to be my last question, and then we're going to go into the Q&A.
Awesome.
Let me ask you about a company. It's actually
is this the surprise question?
No, this is the surprise question. The surprise question is after the Q&A, and it's going to be even, I think, more interesting. But this question is about a company, and they are the highest valued company in the world. Now you know who I'm talking about, but they really don't have that great of a design. And I'm talking about Amazon, obviously.
Yeah.
And when you go to Amazon's website, there are companies that are a fraction of the size of Amazon, and they have much better visual design. When you go to a product page on Amazon, again, there are companies out there that are, not even on Amazon's radar or level, nowhere near them, and they look much better. So I know that this is by design, again. Yeah. No pun intended, but this is by choice. What's going on there?
So first, I agree wholeheartedly with most of what you said, but if you look at their packaging design and their delivery experience of things like the Kindle, they're much more in harmony with an Apple type of product. They'll have a little tab that you can pull. They'll have a little embossed thing, and it'll be black, and they do a better job there. Now it goes back to to kind of bookend this with the start of this conversation. Competitive analysis. Who is Amazon's competitor? It's not Apple. It's Walmart. Walmart is the competitor. Walmart, the biggest retailer in the world, until Amazon came to market and said, you know what? If you can wait 2 days, we're going to give it to you cheaper, and it's not going to have any tax on it. And now you order from Amazon Prime instead of going to Walmart a block away. And so when Amazon is competing with Walmart, you walk into Walmart and it looks cost effective.
Yeah.
I don't want to say cheap, but cheap is the right word. Cost effective is the politically correct term. But Walmart looks cost effective. It looks like an affordable thing. And Amazon is doing the same thing. They're trying to target that same type of customer And so they look right for what they're doing. Amazon has plenty of money to fine tune that whole thing and make it this super slick, nice, fancy, polished design style.
They have the money to do whatever
they do.
want.
They can, but they don't. And now Amazon is so careful, and a lot of Amazon's design decisions are derived from usability research. It's not necessarily from visual design, but it's from what's going to get me the right
masters of split testing.
Yeah, and it is. It's like, I mean, we're talking about the font sizes up and down 0.2 pixels. Does it make a difference? That's to the level that they're doing button placement, all those things. So Amazon, it's if you're talking about Amazon.com, it's its own animal, and it's really but my first thinking when you were bringing that up is who are they competing against? And it's Walmart. And from that standpoint, they look right for what they should look like.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, very good. Kalchina, who is our creative director, she just said it's a good point. I think, Kalchina, you joined late to this live, which we have to have a discussion about later. But just kidding. So what Michael was basically saying earlier in this interview is that you want to design for your target audience. So if your target audience is someone who's looking for cost-effective or cheap products and services, you don't want to design high-end, because that will push them away from what you're trying to do. So I thought that was one of the best points that were made in this entire interview. So now, Michael, I know there's a lot more that we can get into. I would love to have you back another day where we can just talk about a few specific companies, because I have a lot of questions about certain brands. But right now, I just want to go into a question that Jay asked. And by the way, thanks everybody who joined later. Like we have Lloyd and Nick and Irfan and Hisham. Thanks, Don, Georgie, Zaifa, everybody who joined. Thank you guys so much. And everybody watching the replay also, if you have questions, if you weren't able to tune in live and you have questions, I'm sure if you put it in the comments, Michael creeps around in the comment section.
I do. I liked everybody's post from yesterday.
That's awesome.
No, for really, let me just chime in on that. Message me. This is what I'm doing right now. My whole life is dedicated to helping designers and marketers. I love doing that. I'm posting a ton of content on Instagram. I started a YouTube channel. Your
Instagram is awesome. Yeah,
thank you.
I think it's so on brand.
Yeah, thank you.
And it has great advice for people starting business and launching their business, not just for designers, but also for people who are starting their own business. But sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's good. Thank you for the kudos there and for the endorsement. That's good. So my Instagram's @morejanda. Anyway, back to the point of that is that shoot me a question even after this. If you weren't on the live stream, shoot me a question. I'm happy to chime in. Message me through Facebook Messenger or whatever. It's all good. Yeah.
I'm going to put your Instagram here on the screen. So
thanks.
MOREJANDA.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. There it goes.
That's actually my handle for all social media. So if you want to find me on any others, that's the same.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna ask the question that Jay posted here. He said, when you take questions, I'm starting to read it. Okay. What should be the top 3 focuses for design with low budget, and where would you source the work? To clarify, he said, I am referring to the most important page design elements that are must-haves.
So talking about where would you source the work where do you find a designer at an affordable price? Is that what we're talking about?
A few questions here. So what should be the top 3 focuses when it comes to design when you're just getting started and you have a small budget? And where should you source the work?
Okay, so what should you design first?
Yeah,
so you've got to have a logo. That is priority number one. It is the foundation of everything else. So I would start with that. A website destination of some sort, and it can be just a landing page. It doesn't have to be a full-blown 6-page website. If your low Facebook page for your business would be the third element that I would have. And that's the easiest one. You need somebody to design a cover photo and a profile picture, and then you just need to go and invite all your friends to join into your page and start posting some content. But all of those are very affordable ways to get started. You need to be able to give people the opportunity to window shop. And if you are not window shoppable, then you're not going to convert sales.
Explain. Can you explain what you mean by giving people the opportunity to window shop?
Yeah, so they want to. We live in a world now where they want to snoop around on your brand. They want to check it out, and they've got to have something to check out. If you don't have a Google listing, if you don't have a Facebook page, if you don't have a website with your own custom domain, then you don't look like a legitimate business in 2019 and beyond. So those are the things you got to have those things. You don't need a brick and mortar store, which is the traditional window shopping comes from people walking down the street and looking in the window. They shop through the window. Well, we do that digitally now, and you have to have those elements in place. So logo, website, Facebook page is where I would start on the top 3 things that you really have to have in place.
It's so obvious, but people still ignore this. Just like sometimes a person comes up to me and they, on a day-to-day basis, they love wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt or a hoodie and maybe like a baseball cap or tennis shoes. And I wear those things time to time also. However, if I'm meeting with a board member of a bank who is trying to vet me on whether or not they should do business with me or not, I'm not going to show up like that.
Yeah.
I'm definitely wearing my most expensive shoes, my most expensive watch, my most expensive suit.
Yeah.
And without that, unfortunately, they're just not going to take me seriously. If you have all of this great knowledge or great content or great strategies that you can use to help whoever you're speaking with, you got to give them a chance to get over what's in front of them so they can really listen to the message. And for example, in person, the purpose of being presentable is that people don't focus on what you're wearing and they focus on what you're saying. Just like that, with good visual design, when it comes to your brand online, if you don't have a clean, a website, a clean design, a clean cover photo, a catchy logo, a catchy tagline, a clean logo that's scalable, that looks good no matter where you put it, whether it's on a billboard or on a business card. If you don't have that, it's difficult for people to take you seriously because you're not taking yourself seriously.
Yeah. Well, let me interject with that metaphor. It's better. You're better off not showing up at all than showing up in sweatpants and a baseball hat to this board meeting. Yeah. And it's the same thing with a visual brand. You're better off not having anything than you are having a crappy image or an unkept website or an unkept Facebook page that doesn't do you any justice. That could actually deter somebody from buying from you. And so you really, ideally you have it and it looks good, but if you don't and it looks bad, then that's going to dissuade someone from buying from you. So
exactly,
yeah, it's the same, that same metaphor applies visually. You take it one step further. Yeah,
exactly. And just this week, there is a client that was talking to us, and he is selling some products on Amazon, and he's making about $1 million a year just selling on Amazon. Not talking about Shopify, not talking about his own funnel or anything like that. Just on Amazon, he's making $1 million a year. And he contacted me, and I told him how we could help, and then I told him no pressure. He said, I'm talking to other agencies and things like that. He went off and he said, I'll get back to you. right? The next day he emailed us back and he said, hey, I watched one of your videos. Your slides were designed really well. It looks really good. I'm ready to go.
Huh.
You
That's
know,
awesome.
and see, like
Yeah.
that had nothing to do with whether or not we could help him sell more, if our strategy could help him sell more of his product on Shopify,
Yeah.
you know, and make it even bigger than what it's doing on Amazon. But that gave him the confidence that, look, these people show up. When they show up, they are serious. They take themselves seriously, so they're going to take this project seriously. If you don't convey that kind of message, you know, you're going to have a really hard time getting the right clients or selling as many products or services as you want.
Yeah.
And even if you're trying to get buy-in for your idea, you know, ice cream, for example, is a great idea, but if it's sitting at the bottom of a trash can, no one's going to go for it, right?
Yep.
So now I want to conclude this interview that I've really enjoyed having you on. And again, I'm so thankful that you've made time for us.
Thank you.
And even your generous offer to answer people's questions if they message you or post it in the comments of this video.
Yeah.
To end this interview, I want to say, I'm gonna ask you to talk about why design is important when it comes to conversions. But before I let you do that, I'm going to tell you why I believe that messaging or copywriting is important. So people get both, they see how both things are important, right? And again, I'm gonna make it difficult for you because I'm gonna try to limit you to like 3 sentences.
Okay.
2 or 3 sentences. Okay.
I'm on. And you're giving me like a minute or two to prep while you talk. So I got it. Okay.
Okay. So when it comes to your business, copywriting is extremely important, or your messaging is extremely important, because people make a decision to buy something when they read the words or hear the words that convinces them to buy. So when you try to convince somebody to buy, you have to communicate an attractive offer. You have to talk about the problems you solve, and you have to create stakes in this quote unquote game. And by stakes, I mean, what is the potential success that someone's going to have when they engage with you? And what are the potential pitfalls or failures they're going to experience if they don't engage with you? So you can't do that without using the right words, without creating an attractive message, without, you know, optimizing your copywriting to communicate what I just said in the fastest and most effective way possible. And that's why I believe copywriting is extremely important. And the copywriter will also always tell you that it's the most important thing. And I believe that those are the reasons that I just listed why it's the most important thing you can have when it comes to attracting customers or buyers. So Michael, I think I went over 3 or 4 sentences, so I'm going to let you do the same.
I'm gonna win this battle with 2 sentences.
Oh, okay. I feel like I lost. I feel like I just lost.
Here you go. Here you go. You were talking about words, so this isn't part of my answer, but design, visual design speaks without words. And what is your visual design saying about your business? Those are my 2 sentences.
Wow. You know, I don't even disagree with you, right? Because at the beginning of this interview, what I said is a great design elevates whatever message you're trying to communicate.
Yeah.
And a terrible design, a terrible visual design, a terrible user experience will potentially destroy a great message. And it's why people don't buy the best stuff. You know, they don't always buy the best stuff. They buy the stuff that's communicated clearly and beautifully, even if it's not the best option in the market. So with that, Michael, I just want to thank you again.
So and I want to thank, for me. Thank you.
Of course. And I want to thank everyone who joined. I learned a lot. And I'm sure we're going to create some kind of blog post summarizing your you know, teaching points and your takeaways, so that's easy for people to digest. All right. Well, thank you everybody who joined. And I invite you guys next week, where I'm going to do not an interview, but a review. And I'm going to tear up the website of a company that's valued at $120 billion.
And then they'll be on your show the week after, right?
Hey, if that's a model, if
that's
this
working.
if this is any kind of hint at what model works, then I'm just going to keep going with this.
That's good.
Right. So yeah, tune in tomorrow. I mean, next week, guys, not tomorrow, where basically I'm going, and Michael, I would love to have you on that review, by the way, because I'm going to destroy their messaging. I would love to hear you.
Yeah, message me time. I love this, and I'd love to be on again. So let's do more stuff. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
100%.
Okay. So maybe you guys will see us both next week. Thank you guys so much for joining again. Love having you. Love having Michael. Please, everybody, just drop a comment in the video, just thanking Michael for being here with us today. Please just drop a comment. Thank you, Michael. It would mean a lot to me. And we'll see you guys again very soon. We have some exciting updates coming up in the group. I'll share that with you guys later. Have a great rest of your week. And Michael, again, I just can't say it enough times. Thank you,
Thanks
man.
so much. So fun for me. Thank you.
Buy this book, by the way, if you're interested in design. Buy Burn Your Portfolio. It's a great book. I have gone through it. I also told Michael I'm going to be giving it to a bunch of students that I have. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Mehrab. See ya.
Take care, Michael.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.